The Sacramento Kings are forced into an impossible decision right now, as we didn't get to see a ton of Kevin Huerter out there over the course of preseason, obviously recovering from a recent injury, but there's a big debate right now in terms of who's going to be in the starting lineup for this Kings team between him and Ellis, and it's led to some questions about the current roster construction by Monte McNair, sort of piecing this roster together, and Mike Brown has had some interesting comments regarding the situation in terms of who has the edge in the starting lineup once Kevin Huerter returns. So we're going to break down all of this news in this video, but folks, again, we are a day away from Sacramento Kings basketball. If you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with this team, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Appreciate all the views, all the support, all the comments we've been getting, but if you're a part of the 84% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, and you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with the Sacramento Kings team, make sure you guys hit that sub button. It means the world to me. We're like 20 subscribers away from the goal of 500 subscribers, so appreciate all the support we've been getting. But let's dive into the news. Let's dive into what's going on right now for the Sacramento Kings team, because again, it's been a wide debate about who should be starting on this Kings roster, right? Should it be, who should Mike Brown decide? Kevin Heurter, who's obviously been injured to start off this year, or Ellis, who got a lot of run, got a lot of opportunities to close out last season, but basically isn't the same level of shooter that we've seen from Kevin Huerter, that level of sort of, bucket getter, even though he is still a solid three-point shooter himself. Well, Mike Brown has directly addressed this in recent interviews and had some interesting comments, which I've seen have some Kings fans fired up. Essentially, Sacramento Kings coach Mike Brown has said that Kevin Huerter will probably start if he's cleared to play for Thursday's season opener. And again, this has been a bit against the logic, a bit against what people have been saying about this Kings team in terms of strategy, what makes most sense, what's the best fit for this Kings roster to start off this season. Because again, we all know the upside, how good Kevin Huerter can be. We've seen him have ups and downs with the Sacramento Kings team, but when he's good, when he's rolling, when he's knocking down a ton of shots, like he especially was a couple years ago, right? He's one of the best three-point shooters in the league and can be a really good all-around scorer for this Kings roster. But again, while shooting is a priority, especially bringing in DeMar, who again is an elite scorer, they need some more three-point shooting out there in the lineup, and Kevin Huerter does provide a bit more of that than Ellis. But the second part, and probably a more dire need for this Kings team, is defense. And frankly, Ellis provides a lot more on that end of the floor for, the wing position. Because, again, DeMar DeRozan, while not horrific, isn't going to be a lockdown defender. De'Aaron Fox, when locked in, can guard. Obviously, Domantas Sabonis can do different things out there. But out there on the wing, the point of attack defense, right, Keegan Murray is essentially tasked with guarding everybody right now when Ellis is not out there in the lineup. And essentially, that's kind of led, because we can look at the stats for these two guys, right? And Ellis, not the score, not the points per game, but still is a solid spot-up shooter, right? 42% from the three-point line. Shot 36% on corner threes. A smaller sample size, a less stretch of games, and spread out over the course of the year. So, again, this probably isn't indicative of him being a starter for an entire year this season, stats for last season, but Ellis can shoot the three ball, but isn't as much of a scorer, but is a much more solid defender than a Kevin Huerter out there on that lineup in terms of, being mobile, doing different things out there on that front. But Kevin Huerter, as you can see, averages more points per game. The overall three-point percentage is lower, but it's at a higher volume, and you can see that, 42% of his shots from the corners are going in. And when you have guys like De'Aaron Fox, when you have guys that can facilitate, like DeMar DeRozan out there when he's in the mid-post area, making cross-court passes, as we've seen in just a small sample size of preseason of DeMar DeRozan playing for this Kings roster, even Domantas Sabonis is one of the best passing big men in the entire NBA. So having guys that can knock down corner threes at an elite rate the way Kevin Huerter has, this is a team that can better unlock Kevin Huerter, even though, after a down season last year, some of the things that he's able to do. And in previous seasons, we've seen Huerter be really effective out there on that end of the floor. So this is where the big debate comes in, because, again, Ellis is not some Ben Simmons, some washed three-point shooter. In fact, he's a better overall three-point percentage than Kevin Huerter. So, right, if he can do that and he can play defense, why on earth is Mike Brown coming out and saying, hey, we're going to start Kevin Huerter, we're going to go out there in that front and lean into the offensive heavy strategy? And I get the logic behind it. I get the kind of perspective because, again, he's more versatile on the types of shots he can take, more off the dribble stuff. When he's rolling, some of those middies, some of those different things, those different float shots that Kevin Huerter has been able to put into his bag, that all makes sense. That's all well and good. But the defensive aspect is something that cannot be understated in terms of value for this Kings team. And yes, it's been an up-down preseason on both ends of the floor. Again, small sample size in terms of games, and Ellis hasn't set the world on fire by any stretch of the imagination over the course of these preseason games. So maybe they want to switch something up, have Huerter out there in the starting lineup, just so we break out that the bad vibes, the bad omens that has been thrown out there during preseason. But frankly, in terms of just overall roster construction and in terms of just like development, right? Because Keegan Ellis is a guy that's, 24 years old, but is really getting his chance, getting burst onto the seed recently, like as of late, hasn't had multiple years, multiple teams the way, Kevin Heurter has had, who's not that much older, still only 26 years old, not old and washed by any stretch of the imagination, but has had more opportunities to develop out there at the NBA level. So Keegan Ellis playing at the starting lineup, and you could also argue is just a better fit around De'Aaron Fox, around a DeMar DeRozan, just his play style, because while Huerter has a few more skills, in terms of creating his own shot, in terms of getting his own bucket, right? You could look at that and say, hey, you have Malik Monk as well as Kevin Huerter being able to have that type of firepower off the bench to sort of create, get different shots rolling, then that's something you really have to factor in the conversation when, Keegan Ellis is just going to be better utilized, with a De'Aaron Fox, being able to set him up in the corners, right? Fox, DeMar, Sabonis, and, off the bench for this team, while he'll bolster the defense without a doubt, Jordan McLaughlin, even though, is kind of getting trashed out by this team. I think he's getting a little bit too much hate, but still not a guy that is going to be able to create as many shots for Keegan Ellis the way, the star guys on this roster will. So those are all things that you have to factor in. And frankly, just the fact that he's coming back from injury, Kevin Huerter is, and then just kind of being handed that starting spot, it just feels like that's a weird move. It's not the right move for Mike Brown starting off the season. Now, again, he's inside training camp watching these guys play every single, day. So I can't, say I know better or we know better as fans, than Mike Brown in terms of who should be getting this starting spot out here in this lineup. But it is something that has to be discussed. It has to be something that's debated here right now because, again, we can look at this Kings roster and it is very, very, top heavy, to be frank, especially with the injuries that the team has been sustaining to Trey Lyles, to Devin Carter, to a lot of these guys that are out here into the mix. So, who's in what lineups is going to be crucial for maximizing this team's ability to get some W's, to get some wins out here, especially at the start of this season. So, after a cool preseason, we want to see this team get some wins, come out, beat the Minnesota Timberwolves that got the break speed off them the other night by the LA Lakers. So definitely something to, very winnable game for Sacramento to come out and get some W's. But I want to know what you guys think about this Kings team, about who should be in the starting lineup. Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you guys are part of the 84% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, make sure you guys hit that sub button so you don't miss a single thing that's going on with this Kings team. Anyways, you guys are the best for making it this far. Kings basketball's returning soon. I'm signing out. Cheers.